I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Good morning. Welcome, Madridistas. Some videos are easier than others, some need more work, and others less. But in this one, we're gonna break down what Courtois did on Cope's El Partidazo show, because when he talks, wow. Almost everything he says is so interesting. He speaks so clearly. He's one of the best interviewees in football today. And I say this sincerely. He said a lot of things. A lot. Remember we had him on this channel. Is it true that was back then? How long has it been? 3.5 years. Almost 4. Well, we had him. We had him for a little bit, huh? He said 5 minutes, and that's it. Whoa. But he said things that day. That day. In fact, he gave us a headline that day. When was this? It was in March 2022. They were just about to win. Their 14th. Their 14th. He said that those who didn't put him in that team of the year from 4 magazine had no clue. Nope. And you could tell he was mad because, of course, he was going to be the goalkeeper of the season. No doubt about it. And he was just over 2 months away from playing, I'd say, the best game anyone remembers from a goalkeeper in a Champions League final. And maybe the best individual performance by a goalkeeper in the history of major finals, whether for clubs or national teams. Maybe that match against Liverpool, well, good old Courtois. All right, let's get to it because he said some really interesting things. Let's break them down.
And then Xabi Alonso's take was that it had been decided by small details. It was pretty balanced. And people go, no, what details? The fucking detail is the detail that happened in the match. Obviously, it was.
One talks about the match against Liverpool, specifically the last one where Courtois had a great performance.
The take that caught the fans a bit off guard.
Yeah, but in the end, me too. Sometimes from the outside, you can experience it differently on TV than we do out on the field. Yeah, I felt like in the first half, we pretty much had control, and most of their chances came from a long shot that can happen or a bad clearance. That was the play by Gears with Sovalosle, and the second came from a set piece. I don't think, apart from that, I really had to do much. From open play, why I felt like in the first half we were playing better too. In the game, we played pretty well. And in the second half, we also had a hard time creating danger. And that happened to us against Rayo too. And I think that's where we can improve. But yeah, I think the Liverpool game, sometimes saying it's about the details makes it seem like, damn, he's crazy, but that's not the case. It's just that in the end, out on the field, we sometimes feel the same way. And I think that's how it was, that in the first half, we were pretty evenly matched. And in the second half, they were better both offensively and defensively.
Well, but if we're going to talk about the drive they had that day and the attitude of both teams, Liverpool were just giving off way more energy, you know? Anyway, Courtois is a good soccer analyst, right? For me, and then the breakdown.
My man, damn, don't you?
I hit play. I really like the way he analyzes, and I think even though in the interview he says he doesn't see himself that way so much, maybe as a coach in the future. Zidane used to say the same thing. I think he's one of those professional soccer players who talk afterwards and really go into detail. He speaks the best, talks about soccer, and knows the game best, right? And above all, goalkeepers often see it head on, though they don't always line up that way every single time. Well, they're really looking forward to it. Well, besides, no, it's not just seeing it from the front. Seeing it from a standstill with a greater ability to analyze than when you're in the thick of it. And knew in a tough situation during the match as a player. Not good as an outfield player. Here with Vinicius.
For you, the whole Vinicius thing in the Clasico, for example, is pretty much settled. It's something you've completely moved past.
It's settled, accepted, he apologized, and that's it. We've moved on. I think there wasn't any problem there. And in the end, we're all human. And in a high tension, high adrenaline game, we can all react in a way that maybe you regret later. And that's happened to me. Has that happened to other people too? I think in the end, the last name lets the whole team, the whole coaching staff off the hook. And there he wanted to be something for the whole team.
So, closing ranks around Vinicius, like the rest of his teammates are doing, all with a pretty similar argument, it's fine because, well, you've got to get that topic out of the way as soon as possible. And I get it in the locker room setting, mainly to close ranks. These aren't Courtois' most interesting answers right now, and that's why I've been liking these little clips. Now comes the really interesting part. This is what we saw yesterday about Lamine Yamal, who had gotten a bit fired up like we showed in the previous video. We're just not going to show it right now. I want to point out something I forgot to mention in yesterday's video when they gave that update about how Lamine Yamal kind of fired up the game we needed. That vibe, that fire sparked by a classic rival hits even harder when one of the guys on the other side says there's no bad blood with Lamine. Yet if he runs into him at a restaurant, he'll say hi without a problem. With Carvajal, they don't give you any trouble. Same with Hausen and the others on the national team. But when he says that about them, when they've won, they haven't respected us either. That was something I didn't mention before. It's true. I'm in. About Fermin's jumps before gavel time. I don't even remember that thing with Fermin in the four fingers back in the day at the Bernabeu mocking. Then I don't know if it was Fermin or Gavi, one of the two, because, well, they're starting to be pretty much the same people, especially when Gavi, poor guy, well, no, he can't play. They're not both equally fired up in sports, and maybe in ways that aren't about sports. Because damn, man, what a pair these two are. But do you remember when LED celebrated right in Asensio's face? The cup final? Well, hey, people barely talked about that, huh? People have talked more about that thing with Carvajal and Lamine Yamal. Well, Carvajal and Courtois, I was there too. They also went after that Lamine Yamal thing. This about Tebas, the NFL, and all the mess.
Nobody has to tell me what to do. I think that throughout my whole career, I've always spoken my mind.
What I think is I was asking Juanma Castaño about those comments from Tebas, that he had kind of spoken on someone else's behalf. Jose Angel Sanchez. No, and of course, Courtois is defending himself here.
We've always faced a lot of headwind also because people are just waiting for you to have a bad game or something so they can turn around and criticize you. Nobody's told me anything. I think what I said is just common sense. And in the end, it was me there. I think that what was said later, what was done in the end, everybody knows it wasn't really anything. That could be decided this way even today. And I think the NFL has handled it well, same as the Lions. And if we want to do it that way, then we'll have to find a way to talk to all the teams and make sure they all agree. But for me, what changes is that in the end, for us or for. I mean, if I have to play a match against Betis tomorrow, at their stadium, it's much tougher than playing against Betis in Miami, where maybe there are 80,000 or 60,000 Madrid fans. Is that right? We've seen it in the World Cup. When we've played there, almost every stadium was packed with Madrid fans. And that, I mean, it was like playing at home, and that always gives you a bit of an edge. Then you can win, lose, or tie. But not all teams compete under the same conditions. In the same way, that's it. And that's been said. Well, then let everyone share their opinion again.
To Tebas at the restaurant where he was sitting. Lamine is upset. He's already greeted Alami. You also say hi to Tebas. No problem.
Yeah, of course. And I'd love to have a face-to-face debate with him.
I love it here. On El Partidazo, please. Yes, yes.
Well, he's one of the players who more clearly and with stronger arguments has responded to Tebas about the Miami game issue. Let's go with more comparisons between Ancelotti and... I mean, damn, why does this keep going off?
All right. I think Ancelotti is, in the end, kind of like, I mean, I don't know how old he is, but he's almost more like a dad, edging toward grandpa for some people. He's got a bit of that charisma, which is a little different from Xavi, who's younger, maybe more modern. Yeah, sure, with Carlo too. Well, he could get really mad too. And to me, they're two very good coaches. Each have their own way of coaching. But hey, I've won a lot with Carlo. Well, I'll always be grateful to him. But to say now, if we miss anything, well, it would be terrible in that regard.
It's just right for the place the current coach deserves. Without saying anything bad about the previous coach, quite the opposite. Not on good terms with Ancelotti. This confirms that the stereotypes we all have sometimes, not Ancelotti. More like a dad, almost a grandpa and all that. Xavi, well, yeah, a guy who's different and more modern. It's just that Courtois said it, that's all. The fan who goes to gate 55, I did it, Courtois. And sometimes stereotypes end up coming true about who's the best goalkeeper in Real Madrid's history. And then Casillas' name comes up.
To compare you with him?
Do you think you'll be remembered as the best goalkeeper in Real Madrid's history? Is that part of your goal, to be the best goalkeeper in Madrid's history?
No. Well, in the end, at some point, someone has told me or I've seen it, but, well, I think there's a legend, and that's Iker Casillas, who means a lot to Madrid fans and to Spanish football. And just hearing your name among those names is always a compliment. And it's not something that, in the end, if you want to be remembered as one of the best, you've got to win trophies. And that's what I try to do in the end. In a year, nobody's going to remember if I'd stopped it. Or here, he stopped 8 against whoever, but they don't remember the one from 2022. That's why it's important to keep winning trophies. And then later, when I looked back, I retired from Madrid. So there it was. Obviously, everyone can have their say. I think there are young people who maybe never saw Iker play who might side with me. Then there are older folks who have seen both and can give their opinion one way or the other. And I think it's all respectable. The only thing for me, when I was 8, I dreamed of being the goalkeeper for Real Madrid. Today, I'm here. I've won a lot. I want to keep winning a lot. And everything that comes my way is a source of pride for me. Every day I'm here. For me, it's really beautiful. Every day I go to training happy because it's where I'm happiest.
So, does he give Iker his due? He's going to be here for almost half the years. Iker Casillas was at Real Madrid since he left in 2015. Iker, right? Well, he debuted in 99. Damn, 16 years. Courtois is about to complete 8. Is he going to end up doing half the years that Iker Casillas spent at Madrid? And hey, remember the final in 22 too? For me, yeah, technically Casillas really was a special guy because even though a lot of people criticize him, it was for other reasons. But Casillas had some really great years too, and some really bad ones, by the way, but he was kind of miraculous in many things. He's a guy who had a special kind of luck with Spain, with Madrid, and with Spain. But when it comes to technical quality as a goalkeeper, I think in that sense, Courtois is unbeatable, man. He's just unbeatable. The other day, I let one go and Simone didn't. By the way, there's another clip I didn't want to play. Otherwise, it would have gotten way too long. Where he says, well, give me your top 3 goalkeepers. And he says, well, Oblak, then Allison and David Raya, who's doing really well. He goes, so Juanma Castaño says, you put Raya in there, which is direct competition in the national team. The other day, he spoke really well about you, didn't he? No, thanks a lot to you, Unai Simone. You're a great goalkeeper too. But I have to say who I think is doing better this year, and it's true. Arsenal's goalkeeper, David Raya, is doing great. The other day, Unai Simone said about Courtois, if Courtois doesn't show up, no keeper shows up, and he's the best keeper in the world, right? And finally, I think this is the last thing, not the second to last. All right, let's leave the last bit, the thing about Kylian Mbappe. In fact, it gives this video its title because the Mbappe-Cristiano comparison feels like a pretty bold statement, I mean. One of those from a guy who's willing to speak his mind. But first, this thing about the difference between the NFL and soccer. Soccer, but Spanish football, in this case, when it comes to journalism, because if journalists in Spanish football, if they did the same thing the NFL does, going into the locker rooms, what would they focus on? What would they do and all that? Well, this is where it makes a difference. I think he's also spot on.
In my opinion, why it's not meant to be disrespectful to you guys, but I think in football, they go after controversy more. They go after the headline more than in American football. That's where you've got to picture it. In the NBA, reporters can even go into the locker room. And I think if there's press, and I'm not saying Spanish, but football press that comes into our locker room, instead of trying to talk to us, they'll be looking to see if they spot something else they can turn into a story that has nothing to do with football. That guy's underwear was dirty, or this one does that. And that's how it is. I think a lot of times you talk about things that have nothing to do with football, with the game, and then we get offended because obviously you guys are free to share your opinion, and I really respect that. Hector Fernandez is a great friend of mine who's worked in radio, so I know how it works. But of course, sometimes that can bother you. Oh, makes us not feel like talking. And of course, if it's not mandatory, a player will often not want to talk.
Totally right. Though there's something going on here. If the Spanish Football League, well, or any other football league, well, what Americans call soccer, geez, you know what I mean, made the players do the same thing the NFL makes them do, to talk to the media and all that, in that same way, I'd make it crystal clear to the reporters that there are certain things they just shouldn't do. And that's it. Well, in the end, I think it would be really good, and it would be like in American football. Okay, you guys have to answer, but you jerks, what Courtois says, don't focus on whether someone's got stained underwear. No, I'm not sure if I'm making myself clear. That would be it. Both of them would come out ahead. They wouldn't chase sensationalism as much as they do now. And the others would always answer, I think so.
I think.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. That's also a cultural thing, you know? I mean, it wouldn't change overnight. It'd have to be something you prepare well in advance. All right, let's wrap up with the last topic, Mbappé.
What are you gonna?
Are we getting to the Mbappé thing now?
Being Mbappe or Cristiano, can you tell me? What kind of leader is he? Is he better or like how are they different or the same?
Well, I haven't been around Cristiano because that summer I got here, he left. He went to Juve. Well, I think there are two different players.
That's true. He didn't overlap with Cristiano the summer he left, then arrived.
The other one, and I think Cristiano still has a bit more of a winner's mentality. I'd say Kylian, but yeah, this year you can see it even more with him. I think Kylian this year, he's kicked it up a gear compared to last year. And I think last year they were just a tad more. He wasn't shy, but was figuring out his place in the team with Vini and everyone else there. And I think this year he's really carrying the team. I think you can also tell he's a leader, but I think right now, each game it's going to show more because he's still new. And obviously with Cristiano, I've heard a lot, and everyone knows the mentality Cristiano has.
It's exactly like that. It's exactly like that. That's just how it is. Is he speaking well of Mbappe because he says he's taking on that role more and more? But it's just, it is what it is, the way we see it, you know? I think so. Also, during the interview, he talks about, or asks Juanma Castaño about, those digs he sometimes takes at teammates after games. And he says, yeah, well, I've always done it. I like talking about soccer and stuff. I've never had any problem with Madrid fans. It's true that on the national team, Belgian, once in a while someone said something to me, but there haven't been any problems. One thing's for sure. He doesn't hold back. Courtois speaks his mind, and from here, we're glad things are going great for you. Give it a like. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel. Please comment, share, and all right, we'll be back at noon. Bye.